Mazda dealers charge up to $150 in diagnostic fees for a reset sequence that takes 4 minutes and costs nothing. They count on you not knowing it exists. Most drivers assume a warning light or rough idle means a broken part. In 97% of cases, it does not. It means the ECU needs a reset your dealer is in no hurry to tell you about. Today I am showing you the exact sequence, step by step. We will also reveal the one additional reset that clears the most persistent drivability complaints and takes under 60 seconds. Stay till the end. Let's kick off step 1. Number 15. Rough idle. After a battery change. You install a new battery, start the Mazda, and expect the engine to feel better immediately. Instead, the idle drops, the steering wheel shakes, and the engine sounds as if it may stall at the next traffic light. But the ECU may simply have lost the information it spent months learning. Before the battery was disconnected, the computer knew exactly how much air and fuel the engine needed to stay smooth at idle. Now the engine is running from basic settings again. Until the ECU relearns, the idle can feel too low, too high, or unstable. The free fix is simple. Switch off the headlights, radio, air conditioner, heated seats, rear defroster, and anything else that adds electrical load. Start the engine without touching the accelerator. Let it idle until it reaches normal temperature, then leave it running for a few more minutes. After that, take the Mazda for a calm drive. Use light acceleration, smooth braking, and several normal stops so the computer can collect clean information. A Mazda 3 owner named Paul thought his new battery had damaged the engine because the car shook badly after installation. He completed the idle relearn, drove gently for 20 minutes, and the vibration disappeared. No part had failed. The ECU only needed time to learn again. But here is the trap. If the check engine light flashes, the engine keeps stalling, or the shaking gets worse, do not keep repeating the reset. The next item explains why a healthy throttle body can suddenly look defective after someone cleans it. Number 14. High idle after throttle body cleaning. A dirty throttle body can make a Mazda feel slow, so you clean it. The black dirt disappears, the air path looks better, and you expect the engine to run more smoothly. Instead, the idle suddenly races. Then it falls too low, the throttle feels strange, and the car hesitates when you move away. This happens because the ECU may still be using settings learned while the throttle body was dirty. Before cleaning, the computer had to open the throttle plate farther to let the correct amount of air through. A Mazda CX-5 owner named Trevor experienced this after cleaning his throttle body at home. The car had a slightly low idle before the job, but afterward the engine speed jumped every time he started it. Before buying anything, he checked his work carefully. The intake hose was tight, every electrical connector was attached, and no vacuum pipe had been left loose. He then started the engine with every accessory switched off and kept his foot away from the accelerator. He allowed it to warm fully before driving gently. During the drive, he used light throttle, steady cruising, and smooth stops. The high idle slowly settled, and by the next day, the Mazda felt normal again. The throttle body was not broken. The ECU was using yesterday's information with today's airflow. Always inspect your work before resetting anything. A loose intake hose can create a genuine air leak, and a disconnected sensor can cause a real warning light. If this free Mazda trick could save you from an unnecessary repair bill, subscribe now, because the next problem is even more deceptive. One weak battery can make several healthy systems appear to fail at the same time. Number 13. Several warnings from one weak battery. A weak battery does not always leave a Mazda completely dead. Sometimes the engine still starts, but the dashboard suddenly looks as if every electronic system has failed. That does not always mean 6 systems broke at once. It can mean one weak battery caused several control modules to wake up with unstable voltage. Modern Mazdas depend on clean, steady power. When voltage drops too far during startup, one module may begin working before another is ready. This happened to Lisa's Mazda X. One morning, the car displayed stability control, smart brake, and keyless system warnings together. Because the engine still started, she assumed the battery was fine. A workshop began discussing hours of electronic diagnosis. Another technician tested the battery first. It was weak and dropping heavily during startup, even though it could still turn the engine. After the battery was replaced, the stored low-voltage codes were cleared and the Mazda completed a normal relearn drive. Every warning disappeared. The correct order matters. Test the battery, inspect the terminals for corrosion or looseness, and make sure the alternator is charging properly. Once stable power is restored, record the stored codes, clear them, and drive the vehicle normally. Watch carefully to see which warnings return. If most disappear, the power problem was likely the cause. If one remains, that system now deserves proper attention. The next warning feels even more expensive because it makes owners believe the transmission is beginning to fail. Number 12. Strange transmission. Shifts. After power loss. Your Mazda shifted smoothly before the battery died. After a jump start or battery replacement, it begins holding gears longer, changing earlier, or shifting with a noticeable bump. That can make an owner fear the transmission immediately. But modern Mazda transmissions use learned values to adjust how they operate. When battery power is removed, some of those learned settings may disappear. The transmission returns to a basic map and starts learning your driving style again. A Mazda CX-9 owner named Daniel noticed this after replacing his battery. The first gear change felt delayed, while the next one felt much harder than normal. Daniel decided to drive gently before approving anything. He used light acceleration and allowed the transmission to move naturally through each gear. He held a steady speed, slowed down smoothly, and came to several complete stops. He repeated the same pattern during normal driving over the next few days. By the third day, the shifts had returned to normal. The transmission had not repaired itself. It had relearned. Do not try to force the process by driving aggressively. Hard launches and sudden braking only give the computer messy information. If the transmission slips, refuses to engage, leaks fluid, grinds, or shows a serious warning, do not hide it with a reset. Those signs need proper diagnosis. But when strange shifting starts immediately after power loss, a calm relearn should happen before anyone starts discussing a replacement gearbox. The next reset fixes a part many owners think has failed inside the door. Number 11. One touch. Window. Stops. Working. After the battery is disconnected, the window may still move up and down, but the one-touch feature disappears. You have to hold the switch for the entire movement. This can look like a failed switch, weak motor, broken regulator, or faulty control module, but the window may only have lost its learned top and bottom positions. The relearn is usually simple. Switch the ignition on and confirm that the window lock is not active. Lower the affected window completely, then keep holding the switch down for a few seconds. Raise the glass fully and continue holding the switch up for several more seconds. Release the switch and test the automatic function. On many Mazdas, the one-touch movement returns immediately. Nina, who owned a Mazda 3, nearly bought a new driver's window switch after hers stopped working automatically. The problem began on the same day her battery was replaced. She completed the initialization process and tested the window again. The feature returned in less than a minute. Some models use a slightly different sequence, and each affected window may need to be initialized separately. That is why the correct procedure for the exact model still matters. Do not keep repeating the process if the glass moves crookedly, makes grinding noises, or struggles to rise. Those signs point to a mechanical problem. But when the window worked perfectly before battery disconnection and only loses its automatic function afterward, initialization should come before buying a motor or switch. The next one is more serious because a lost steering reference can make several safety systems shut themselves down together. Number 10. Steering instability. Warnings after battery power is lost, the car may need to confirm that reference again. Until it does, warning lights can appear, or certain assistance features may remain unavailable. Michael saw a stability warning after his battery went flat. The steering felt normal, the car had not hit anything, and no work had been performed near the wheels. He started the engine with the wheels facing forward. Then he turned the steering wheel smoothly in one direction, moved it the other way, and returned it to the center. After that, he drove carefully in a straight line. The warning cleared once the system compared the steering position with the direction of travel. This does not mean every stability warning is harmless. A bad wheel speed sensor, damaged wiring, poor alignment, or genuine steering fault can create similar messages. If the steering feels unsafe, the vehicle pulls badly, or the warning remains on, the car needs a proper inspection. Never treat a safety warning like a decoration. But if several steering-related messages appear immediately after a weak battery or battery replacement, a simple relearn may clear them without replacing a single part. The next feature is where many owners blame a brand new battery even when the battery is doing exactly what it should. Number 9. iStop refuses to return. After the battery has been disconnected or replaced, iStop may stay unavailable for a while. That can make the owner think the new battery is wrong or the system has failed. So can a battery that is not fully charged. Even a correct new battery may need ordinary driving before the system becomes ready again. A CX-5 owner named Grace became worried when iStop stopped working after a battery replacement. The car started perfectly, but the green indicator refused to appear. She drove home with the air conditioner running at full power because the weather was hot. At every traffic light, the engine continued running. The next morning, the cabin was cooler and the electrical demand was lower. Once the engine warmed up and the battery recovered, iStop returned. Battery type matters as well. A cheap battery may fit inside the tray, but it may not be designed for repeated start-stop use. If the wrong battery is installed, resetting the ECU will not make it suitable. The car needs the correct specification and a healthy charging system. If the warning remains on or iStop stays unavailable for a long time, have it checked. But do not buy another battery after 5 minutes simply because the feature has not returned. Sometimes the system is not broken. It is only waiting for the conditions Mazda programmed into it. The next reset is embarrassingly simple, yet some owners still pay a workshop to make one small dashboard symbol disappear. Number 8. Wrench light. After an oil change. You change the engine oil, install a new filter, check the level, and start the Mazda. The wrench symbol or maintenance message is still there, but the maintenance reminder is usually a separate counter. Changing the oil does not automatically tell the computer that the work has been completed. On newer Mazdas, the reset may be inside the vehicle information or maintenance menu. You select the oil change interval or service reminder and reset the correct item. A CX-30 owner named Adrian changed his oil at home and became worried when the message returned the next morning. The level was correct, there were no leaks, and the engine sounded normal. He entered the maintenance settings, selected the oil change reminder, and reset it. The message disappeared immediately. The important part is understanding what the warning means. A wrench symbol is not the same as an oil pressure warning. A red oil pressure light can mean the engine is not receiving enough lubrication. That requires immediate attention and should never be cleared like a normal reminder. But when the oil and filter have genuinely been changed and only the maintenance counter remains, the electronic reset is the final step. The next problem looks much worse because one weak start can make the entire dashboard light up like a Christmas tree. Number 7. Dashboard explosion. After a jump start. This happens because low voltage can interrupt communication between the computers. One module may restart while another is still offline. Sharon owned a Mazda 6, and one morning she saw 6 warnings after her car needed a jump start. A nearby workshop warned that modern electronic faults could become expensive very quickly. Before approving any work, she had the battery tested. It failed immediately. The battery was replaced, the terminals were cleaned, and the stored low-voltage faults were cleared. After a short drive, nearly every warning disappeared. Before clearing anything, take pictures of every message. Read the codes if you have a scanner and save the information. Then test the battery and charging system. If the alternator is weak, the reset may work briefly before the same warnings return. Once the power problem is repaired, clear the low-voltage codes and drive carefully. Some systems will complete their checks and restore themselves. If most warnings disappear, you have separated temporary electronic confusion from a real fault. If one remains, focus the diagnosis there. Without this order, someone may replace a sensor, then a module, while the weak power supply continues causing trouble. The next issue can leave you stranded outside a shop, even though the Mazda still knows exactly who you are. Number 6. Key not detected. You press the start button and the Mazda says the key is not detected. You try again, move the key around, and still nothing happens. Many push-button Mazdas have a backup method for this exact situation. Press the brake or clutch and place the Mazda symbol side of the key directly against the start button. Colin discovered this outside a supermarket. His doors opened with the mechanical key, but the engine refused to start. A towing company quoted him to move the vehicle to the nearest dealer. While he was waiting, another Mazda owner showed him the backup method. Colin placed the key against the start button, pressed the brake, and the engine started immediately. The car had not forgotten the key. The fob battery was weak. If neither key works, check the vehicle battery before blaming both keys. Low vehicle voltage can disturb the keyless system just as easily as a weak fob battery. A full ECU reset is not normally required after replacing the small key battery, but stable power and the emergency method can save a tow and an unnecessary programming bill. Comment below with the strangest warning your Mazda has ever shown you, because the next reset can make a sunroof remember how to close again. Number 5. Sunroof loses its memory. After battery work, the sunroof may still move but lose its automatic function. It may stop halfway, close, and reopen, or refuse to tilt properly. A Mazda owner named Ruth noticed this after her vehicle returned from bodywork. The repair shop had disconnected the battery during the job. The sunroof opened normally, but the one-touch closing feature no longer worked. The shop suggested bringing the vehicle back for inspection. Ruth checked the correct initialization process for her model instead. She held the required switch while the roof completed its full movement cycle. The procedure varies between Mazda models. Some use the tilt switch, while others require the close switch to be held through a complete cycle. Do not guess blindly. Check the correct method for the exact year and model. Before attempting it, inspect the tracks and remove visible leaves or dirt. Make sure nothing is trapped near the moving glass. Never place your hands in the opening during initialization. If the roof grinds, sits unevenly, or moves slowly on one side, stop. That is more likely to be a mechanical problem. But when the sunroof worked perfectly before battery disconnection and only loses its automatic movement afterward, relearning should come before replacing the motor. The next item is where many owners waste money even after the real mechanical problem has already been repaired. Number 4. Hesitation. After an air leak is repaired. You replace the hose, so the air leak is gone, but the idle still feels wrong, the throttle still hesitates, and fuel economy remains poor. A Mazda 3 owner named Henry experienced this after replacing a split intake hose. The original leak caused a rough idle and a lean fault code. The hose was replaced and the code was cleared, but the Mazda still felt weak when pulling away. A workshop began suggesting more tests and possible sensor replacement. Henry cleared the learned fuel correction and allowed the engine to complete a fresh relearn. He let it idle, warmed up, and then drove gently. The hesitation slowly disappeared. The new hose had fixed the mechanical problem, but the computer needed to stop correcting for a leak that no longer existed. The same thing can happen after cleaning an airflow sensor, replacing an oxygen sensor, repairing a vacuum leak, or reconnecting a loose intake pipe. But the repair must be correct first. If the hose is still loose or the sensor is still faulty, the ECU will find the problem again. That is why a reset can seem to work for one day before the symptom returns. The computer did not create the fault, it only reacted to it. Fix the cause, then clear the reaction. The next mistake is why thousands of owners disconnect the battery, count to 10, and achieve almost nothing. Number 3. The 10-second reset that does nothing. Many owners think an ECU reset means removing the negative battery terminal, counting to 10, and reconnecting it. Sometimes that clears a temporary setting, but sometimes almost nothing changes. A better power reset begins with patience. Park safely, switch off every accessory, remove the key, and move the key fob away from the vehicle. Give the Mazda time to shut down. Modern cars can keep several systems awake for a short period after the engine is switched off. Once the vehicle is asleep, disconnect the negative terminal using the correct tool. Avoid touching the terminal and metal bodywork at the same time. Leave the battery disconnected for several minutes. Some owners press the brake pedal after disconnection to help remove remaining electrical charge. Never disconnect the battery while the engine is running. That old test can create voltage spikes and damage modern electronics. Remember that a full reset can erase useful settings as well as bad ones. Windows, sunroof, clock, maintenance information, idle learning, and transmission learning may all need attention afterward. Before disconnecting anything, make sure you know how to restore the features your exact Mazda may lose. The point is to solve one problem, not create 5 new ones. Even after doing the reset correctly, one impatient driving mistake can ruin the relearn before it is properly started. Number 2. Driving hard. Before the relearn is finished, the battery is reconnected, the Mazda starts, and the owner hears a slightly rough idle. He immediately presses the accelerator and drives hard to see whether the problem is gone. Start with every accessory switched off. Let the engine idle without touching the accelerator and allow it to reach normal temperature. Then introduce electrical load slowly. Switch on the air conditioner and give the computer time to adjust the idle. After that, drive calmly. Use light acceleration, hold a steady speed, coast naturally, and make smooth stops. Jamie owned a Mazda CX-5 and made the mistake of driving hard immediately after resetting his ECU. The throttle felt strange and the transmission seemed confused. He disconnected the battery again that evening and repeated the reset. The following day, the Mazda felt even worse because he had restarted the learning process twice. On the third attempt, Jamie allowed the engine to idle and warm fully. He then drove calmly through several normal conditions. By the end of the drive, the Mazda already felt better. 2 days later, it felt completely normal. Do not disconnect the battery again simply because the first 5 minutes are imperfect. Every new reset sends the computer back to the beginning. If the Mazda becomes dangerous, shows a flashing check engine light, or runs badly enough to cause damage, stop and diagnose it. But if the symptoms are mild and begin after power loss, allow the relearn to finish. Now we have reached the one rule that decides whether this free reset saves hundreds or merely hides the real problem for a few miles. Number 1. Reset only after fixing the real cause. This is the step that decides whether the ECU reset feels like a miracle or a complete waste of time. It is also the part many reset videos leave out. Imagine the Mazda has a failing ignition coil. The engine misfires, the computer stores a fault, and the check engine light appears. You disconnect the battery, the warning disappears, and the engine feels better for a few minutes. Then the misfire returns. The reset did not fail. The ignition coil was still broken. The same thing happens with bad spark plugs, vacuum leaks, damaged sensors, blocked injectors, low compression, weak alternators, and broken wiring. That is why fault codes should be read before anything is cleared. The code is evidence. Take a picture of the dashboard warning and write down the code. Note when the problem happens and what changed before it started. Did the trouble begin after battery work, throttle cleaning, an oil change, sensor replacement, or intake repair? Was a hose removed or a connector unplugged? One owner nearly approved a new throttle body because his car kept stalling after maintenance. Another technician opened the hood and found a small intake hose that had not been pushed on fully. The hose was reconnected, the learned settings were cleared, and the engine completed a fresh idle relearn. The Mazda ran perfectly. That is when the free reset becomes powerful. Fix the real cause first, then clear the old corrections. The computer now starts with correct information. The idle settles. The throttle responds properly. The transmission relearns your driving, and low voltage warnings can disappear. Windows may need initialization, the sunroof may need to relearn its limits, and iStop may need time to return. But the Mazda is no longer trying to run today's engine using yesterday's bad information. That is why dealers hate this reset. An informed owner does not approve a new part simply because the dashboard looks frightening. He tests the battery, records the codes, checks what was recently touched, fixes the real fault, and gives the computer a fair chance to relearn. That process can stop a small electronic issue from becoming a large repair bill. Sometimes the car will still need professional work. A reset cannot save a failed component, and it should never be used to hide a serious safety warning. But when the trouble begins after battery disconnection, cleaning, maintenance, or a low voltage event, this free reset deserves a chance before an expensive guess. Sometimes the most expensive Mazda problem is only a computer remembering something that is no longer true, so investigate carefully before approving another repair. Thanks for watching. If this video saved you from an unnecessary repair bill, hit the like button right now. Want to see more Mazda secrets that dealers do not want you to know? Click the video on the screen. Subscribe so you never miss content like this again.